Hello, how are you? Good. Good, how are you? Good. Hi.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, the light, it's, you know, I wake up so early, it's so late, I sleep with the window open and wake up 3 times in the night. That's kind of death.
Oh, the sun is up so early now.
Yeah,
I work overnights and like, you know, 4:45.
thunderstorms don't help with a puppy.
All right. We are all set, Mr. Stanley, if you want to go live.
Yeah, we are live right now.
All right. Then I will call to order the June 13th, 2022 meeting of the Joint School Board at 6:33. Do roll call first. Susan Levinson. Here. Kathy Brosnan. No Kathy. Carol Martin.
Here.
Megan Sabasco. Lori Kilberth.
Here.
Jen Fry, I'm here. Brian Winslow.
I'm here.
Melissa Sauls.
Here.
Todd Abernathy.
Here.
And Brandon Albert is not here. All right, we have no public for public comment, so we'll move on. Business administrators report, we basically did that last week.
We did that last
right?
week,
Okay.
and with our AP and payroll not being here,
Mhm.
and Ms. Bloom not being available the last 3 days, we've not had anything new to report.
Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
Perfect. We can move on to Ms. LaValle for our student services report.
Sure. Yeah, you got
My report to hand carry today.
Thank you.
Just a few kind of end of year numbers for you. The end of the year preschool enrollment. Divided between Northwood and Nottingham, not a lot of changes in the past month. For alt ed, some exciting changes over the last month. We've had 4 students graduate through the alt ed program, so that's really nice to see. Other than that, everything's been pretty stable. The second page are the year end numbers that you usually get for preschool, for referrals and number of evaluations and that kind of thing. Just compiled that for the year.
Great. Thank you so much for this.
Of course. That's all I have.
Question. So for the alt-ed program for Nottingham going forward, are we gonna have an agreement with that, or how is that gonna play out?
We can make the same kind of arrangement that we make with Stratford and Barrington, which is to tuition students in on a
Okay.
daily rate.
And do we know what the rate would be, or?
I believe this year was 35, next year would be, this year was 40.
Mhm.
Yeah, so next year will be probably $42 a day.
Okay.
Because of the increase of the cost. $42 to $45 a day we have to calculate, and what it is per day that the program is available to the student. So their check-ins, they're doing things so that they're there. It's the same method that we do now. When all of the districts split it, it usually worked out to be about $25 a district as a day per student. When it's coming down to one district, it gets you to balance it out. It's looking more like 40 because if no one else is in it from other district, it gets more expensive for the remaining.
So the kids come in a couple of days, or?
It depends on the student. Some students come in 5 days, or they might come in 4 days, but they'll reach out to Mr. Holton 3 or 4 different times, even when they're not here, because he checks in with them and works with them remotely.
So would that be like a agreement with the contract type of thing?
We do draw a contract this year that we've used with Stratford and Barrington. And we just started when we have a team meeting with the student and their family and the special ed director in the other district. Everybody decides that it's the right program for that student, and then we start that's when we set up the contract. And then it continues until we have noticed that the student is withdrawing for whatever reason.
For the contract for each individual.
Each student, yep,
student?
yep,
Okay.
yep.
So there's no like MOU for the program or anything?
No, it's
It would
just
come
that student.
to us,
It goes to the director only.
or the director, but the director would know.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then the director would share with you, I'm sure, but yeah, it
And
just
there's
goes to the director.
no cap or anything on the program numbers wise that you guys.
No, we were
even
able to-
space, right?
No, we were able to service all of Stratford students and all Barrington students this year who tuitioned in. And they were in at like $40 a day per day, and they were said two, but there were sometimes more than two, and some, depending on the town. So
And that would happen over the summer, or you'd have a continuation of the students that are
it would start
there?
at the beginning of the school year.
So, right,
yeah.
school year, we wouldn't start anything July 1 to meet or anything?
Nope. Mr. Holton's not working over the summer this year. He did say any student that's currently a member, if they wanted to continue some work remotely over the summer, we could make that available. But that'd be a case by case basis for that student. Most students don't want to do it over the summer.
All right. Any other questions for Ms. LaValle? Do we need her anymore?
No, that's it.
Would you like to escape?
I guess, are there any other open items for the preschool transition for us, or that,
We'll
There's-
talk about some at the Nottingham board meeting, as far as the joint board, I mean, it's just the new stuff.
It's just the move, and the only thing that came up in the move is that one of the desks that was in the build, they're the same, one might be a little big for the space.
Yeah, we were talking about that this morning.
Yep.
So nothing that you don't already know from this morning.
And I know that it's been discussing, could we, but preferred timeframe of the move, or is there? I'm sure it's preferred, but.
After the
22nd,
like the soonest, the
as
sooner the
soon as
better.
possible.
Yeah,
Right, because we do have ESY going on down. We are gonna need to service some ESY kids for Northwood in the preschool classroom. And the maintenance needs to do the floor of that, so.
So they would do
Between-
that before the ESY, they would want to, and then move that classroom over. as
Yeah,
well,
if that's
that'll happen.
possible, yeah.
And that starts after
maintenance.
the 4th, right, like our ESY. class.
Anything else? Thank you very much. On to you.
okay, so my report starts on the 4th. We have some addendums that I've sent out too. We will need to go in a non-public to update a couple things potentially. If there's questions, I'll give you updates as it is. And then if there's further questions, we might need to go in. So if you look at page 4, I do want to make a correction because this went out after and I just didn't want to redo it and resend it. So Miss Osborne is currently slated for June 6th, but because we lost Viola Canella, Miss Osborne has said that she'll stay on through the remainder of the year. She'll be done the 30th. That's the latest she's going to stay no matter what, but she will stay to make sure that we can get things together, especially with Miss Bloom being away she had a trip planned before she joined us. So she's been away for 3 days. So she stayed on. So what I would like to do here is offer a resignation for Linda Osborne, Fred Wolf, and Vi Canella. And they will all be effective June 30th.
Make a motion to accept the resignations of Linda Osborne, Fred Wolf, and Viola Canella with regret.
All right, so that was a motion from Brian Winslow, second from Todd Abernathy. Any questions? Discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, and that passes unanimously at, what are we at?
8-0.
8-0.
So we don't have any correspondence that I need to share at this point for the joint board. Your update for your Stratford separation agreement, it has gone to Mr. Graham. Mr. Graham has forwarded it over to Stratford. Stratford had a board meeting last Wednesday. We'd hope to hear back from Stratford. I have contacted Mr. Graham 2 different times, once on Friday and once again today. I do that sparingly, as you know, because, just the emails, they add up quickly. But I did explain to Mr. Graham that if they would like a check cut for the 15th, we need an agreement that they're agreeing to what we're doing. And that was the latest thing that he just sent to Mr. Grant, Mr. O'Shaughnessy, which was, if we're going to make that check payable by the 15th, we need to know that your board has agreed and signed it. So we're at that, that's where we're waiting. That's why I keep checking my email, because in the past I've gotten them as late as 6:30. So we're hoping to see that real soon, and I'll let the board, the moment I get a signature, I'll let the board know so that our board can sign it. Their board would have already let us know so that we can get a check sent out to them as soon as possible. So we will need, and I've already spoke with Ms. Brosnan. Ms. Brosnan said, as soon as we have a check cut, she will come and sign it so that I can deliver it, because it's going to be a large enough check that I'm just going to drive it over and deliver it to them and have them sign for it, just to state that they'd received it. Okay, so that's where we're at there. If there's any follow-up that you'd like to have, we can do that after. I have no other legal updates. I do have SAU inventory here for you. So if you'd like to take one and pass it down, I tried to do the same thing. I tried to do what was asked. I hope I did it what you were looking for, because you had, oh, I did not get it. So Ms. Sabasco had asked if I could separate the two, so I did try to do it as what we had discussed. This is an updated one from what was in your packet, because as it was in your packet, we hadn't had a chance to go over what Northwood would wanted or didn't want. So my question to you is, which one would you like to start with, the hardware assets or the SAU inventory?
Does anyone have a preference?
We can start with the hardware first one, because that was pretty much, I know, fully discussed at our board level.
Okay. Yeah, so the only changes to the hardware asset was I did put disposal in there. So what I had put in was the Northwood board had received an email that there were 2 routers they didn't want, so I took those out of the Nottingham list. And the Northwood board bought 5 new monitors, so I took 3 of the monitors off of the list for disposal because we were splitting them. Northwood doesn't need them because they bought new monitors for the staff using surplus. So they upgraded to the 24-inch monitors. So I took 3 of them off. We still need a couple spares, but not all 9 that we had. So that was the only update. I did not add them to yours because I hadn't talked to you. I don't know if you need the extra 3 monitors or not. I don't think you do, but
I don't know if they're slated officially for anywhere.
they're very old. That I don't know what, they won't connect to most newer machines. You would need
That's what I
VGA.
don't know. That was a conversation that maybe Mr. Smith had.
Yeah, he wanted the ones that we were giving you, but I just don't know if you need another 3.
Right.
I don't think you do, but
I
I'm
didn't
more than
hear
welcome.
anything about it, so it's hard
No.
to.
Mhm. So that's the only change. Okay. So that brings us to the SAU inventory. What I had done on the SAU inventory is I put everything that Nottingham had requested, and then, so this is very much the same inventory you had seen, but I couldn't work in the dysfunction that it was. I couldn't do that. So when you had asked me to separate it, I needed to do it a little bit easier to be able to follow. So I grouped everything. Desks, tables, chairs, and then some of them are repeats where there were more numbers of them. But when I wanted to separate columns, I wanted it to be easier for people to understand where things were going than to put the same number across. Like, for instance, if there were 7 desks, I didn't want to have 3 in one, 3 in the other, and 1. I just wanted them separate. So it was much clearer to see what's being proposed for disposal. So once we put everything in for what Nottingham needed, I went through the Northwood list of what Northwood actually still needed. And then I proposed some things to the board as well, the Northwood board, which was, we had 12 burgundy chairs left over. And I asked the Northwood board if they could foresee any reason that they would need to keep all 12, or if they wanted to keep a certain number. And they came up with the same number of 6. And then you would look at selling or disposing of 6 extra chairs, because the 12 extra chairs just weren't needed. Same thing with some of the metal desks. There were 7 of them here. With you taking 2 of them, that left 5. We just did not need 5 in this office anymore. So those were being disposal. And then we had a couple wooden desks that were broken. So I actually put broken, so removed, and the same with like some of the desk chairs, old vinyl, and being disposed of. So I went through all of this and broke it out to where we were at. And then and this is up to the board, I tried to be clear with what they look like for the Northwood total versus the Nottingham total versus the disposal. And I put below it what that would look like minus the 31% of value that had already been distributed from those products. Because there was like 10,000 something left, but you had distributed some of that. So to Stratford for their valuation. So you have to remove the cost because you've already removed the value of it. And then the only other major change on this was I said the racetrack table the value would need to be determined. Northwood had proposed $600 for the value of the racetrack table, because at this point it's 5 years old. 4.5 years old. So they proposed that and we put it in under them. So that's the changes that took place on this packet.
Can I ask how broken desks are valued at $500?
Those values were all before.
So were they broken before?
Yeah, that desk has always, I didn't set the values. Those desks had always been
Right,
set.
but I know when we did the Stratford agreement, we discussed some of that, used.
We tried during the separation to explain that they
Yeah.
weren't valued and they wouldn't accept it. That's
Okay.
that is where during the separation, when it was Miss Fry and Miss Martin, when we met with them, they came up with a number that they were willing to accept.
Yep, I know, we just trying to do that. I was just curious why they're
So
still showing up as that.
What-
Because you've adjusted some of the other values, so I don't know why those would have that value on the list.
because they wouldn't let us take them out.
No, but I mean,
They
This is
were
the new
adjusted
agreement.
off to the other side, so I could have put 0 either way. It's just,
Okay.
what I tried to do was keep track of it so people could see the value, because if I put broken and put $0, even in the broken to discard, you would not see where the money was, where it was $10,000 worth of furniture. And if I didn't put the value even as broken, it would have thrown the numbers way off and out of whack, is why I left them there. If that makes sense.
yeah, a little.
Yeah, but except you deducted the 30% from,
Not from the broken stuff.
yeah, I'm trying to. Oh, yeah, I
I
guess
don't know
because we
why.
didn't ultimately just use that 31% for Stratford, we rounded the total. Like we took that number out of the total, which included the broken stuff, and that was rounded.
Right,
Wasn't
and the value of the
exactly
racetrack table much higher, so their 31% was not just.
It was 10,000. So if you take these numbers across the top, it will add up to what it was if you include the increased value of the racetrack table. Same numbers are there. I didn't change any of the numbers other than the racetrack table, because that was never depreciated. And the Northwood board is the one who proposed the adjustment on the track table. And that was after I'd shared a couple valuations of racetrack tables that I found online. As low as $200 for a 20-foot table. That when it's used.
So I know that we have a list for disposal, but we've talked about whether it's selling them or they're trash and
Yeah.
disposing of them. Can you just help me understand how you broke that part down?
So the broken ones would just be trash. The rest, it's up to the board whether or not you want to try to sell them for some kind of a value. That's why I separate it in the description, whether it was broken.
Right.
So there are a couple different things in here that you could try to sell. So we said the metal desks were worth $75 a piece.
Mhm.
You could try to sell those metal desks. I don't know if you'll be able to. You can try to sell the burgundy chairs. There are certain things you can try to sell.
Mhm.
It's just in the time frame that we're trying to sell them when we're trying to come to a close. What I have done and I didn't commit to anything yet, but I did reach out to Newington Restore, and they'll come and pick it up for free as a donation. Because the other problem is if you can't sell it and you do have to throw it away, you're gonna have to pay for a dumpster to come
Right.
get it, and then someone to haul it out to the dumpster. Newington Restore will take it all, other than the broken desk.
So they probably won't take them. Yeah. All right. Great.
So if they take it all for free, the disposal goes away.
Well,
That's the
that's
value.
that's just the value. There's no
That's the
cost to
value.
dispose of it. That was just the
Okay.
value so you could see if you were gonna sell it.
Okay.
Anything in here that you wanted to try to sell, that's what we were saying the use value was.
Okay.
So the problem we're having is that the numbers used for Stratford's agreement are substantially higher, and then we took out 9,000 for them. Because the computer hardware was substantially
At
higher.
16, and that has been.
Because it was an,
adjusted.
yeah, that's been another year old. The
Mhm.
software, the technology all goes down.
Oh, mhm.
That's definitely up to the boards to discuss. This is what I can put together from what we had. Nothing on the furniture was further depreciated, even though I said the use values were determined well over 6 months ago, other than the table.
Right,
Mhm.
but it's
To include
depreciated by
preschool.
30%.
It should have been depreciated when it was with Stratford, but we didn't depreciate it because they didn't want the table in the first place.
So we actually rounded up for the Stratford.
To resolve the
agreement to
preschool
just
issue.
have it-
Just to
Yeah, that
resolve
was-
another matter.
Mhm.
If we were going to try to sell some of these items, how would you recommend we do that? What would be your thought? I mean, you're right, we're up against it for time, but what are some of the options that we would have?
You can
I mean, could we?
post it on the school websites.
Mhm.
Or the school board websites, but I will tell you, the problem is gonna be manpower.
Right.
Because it's trying to show these things. We don't have enough people to
Exactly.
keep coming, if someone calls and says, oh, I'd like to come see a desk.
Mhm.
We have to pull away to walk and see, no, I don't want that desk. When you keep doing it, that will be a
Right.
little bit of an issue.
I was thinking about that.
But that would be my recommendation is
Mhm.
you'd have to put it on one of the school websites, both school websites, the SAU website. And say, we have these products.
Mhm.
I think the big factor on the disposal isn't just that they're not valuable. It's that both SAUs shrank in size
Mhm.
considerably. Or the SAU itself shrank in size. So we had a lot more employees when we had 3 districts. And even with the 2 districts, we still had quite a few more employees, but when we're downsizing, we're losing quite a few employees between the 2 districts.
Right.
Because you won't have an assistant director, like you're losing an assistant director in HR,
Mhm.
a payroll, a receptionist that we had been having. So you're losing several positions as well as a special ed secretary that was in this building. So you've lost 4 or 5 positions. That means all these desks have freed up,
Right.
and that's what's occurring. You have 5 desks in here that aren't needed.
Mhm.
And the reason for the chair is all of our chairs were old at the SAU, and then Northwood Board decided to buy 5 new chairs as well. So they don't need these chairs either. So they're saying we can dispose of them. Because most of them are crickety or cracked or not these, the office chairs, like the desk chairs. I don't know what you want to call them, computer chairs. That's the word. We actually still have 3 of them in boxes because there's nowhere to put them until the other stuff's gone.
All right. other questions, comments? I think this encompasses, unless someone sees something that's missing from each of your individual districts, I think this encompasses what Nottingham wants, what Northwood wants to keep.
It is still missing, I think, the third floor conference.
That was never on the list. I think it's because it had been discarded from this office. It was down here. It was one of the two of the ones down here. So that one, that desk and that table and that Mr. Holton's desk were never in the inventory. So I didn't add them to the inventory.
Mhm.
And can I ask that, just to clarify with our space, does this room need to be cleared out by the end of the month?
We have it
Yeah.
through August,
Oh,
until
This
August.
floor too?
This
Sorry.
floor, just this
Through
floor.
July until.
Yeah,
Yeah.
till August 1st.
Yeah,
Right,
we
and the
extended
third-
the lease.
Not the
through-
third floor.
But not the third
Not-
floor.
not the
So
third
this
floor.
floor and the main floor, obviously.
Yeah.
And this floor is for extended, okay.
Yeah.
But not the third floor.
That's correct. If you remember. There's a bell. If,
You heard the bell?
yeah,
Wow.
Kinda
Dialed
like
in.
shoulder, you're crashing.
Do you guys have any thoughts at all about the,
I mean, I don't
furniture
think
here?
we agree with the approach, but
I don't.
I don't know if there's
I
anything we
don't
need to do here.
Yeah, I don't think there's
Okay.
anything to be done now. I
Right.
think that might be in
I
our
think it comes down to
Agreement?
valuation.
evaluation of the items.
it was FedEx. I did not catch them.
I didn't hear anything.
No, we're all
I'm used
impressed
to the
you,
sound.
Wow.
I'm sorry, where was I at? The upstairs? Oh, the,
So you guys are moving the stuff out of there by the end of the month?
yes.
I think at
Miss-
this point, we're not sure we actually want that conference table because we don't have anywhere to put it.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can decide by Wednesday for sure, but,
That's fine.
Yeah.
and when we're looking at moving costs,
Right,
and we have no way.
and that's where we're at right
We're
now.
trying to strike a
Not clear that we
balance
can
between
move
We're
what
trying to
costs to
figure
move
out-
everything, so that's why,
$2,000.
so Wednesday we need.
Things that are not worth $2,000.
Nope, I get it.
So I think that's where we're, our discussions are.
If I can
is
get-
that now?
If I can get Mr. Holton and Mr. Stanley to help me, maybe we can bring it down here and just sit it down here and then you can decide, because then if you don't want it, I think that and we can't sell it, I think that Newington Restore would take it because it's not in that bad. It's in
Yeah,
good
that-
shape.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
it's a little damaged on the bottom.
yeah, it's got a little, I think what seems to be a little bit of water damage made the laminate peel. Just on like a corner edge.
Yeah, on the base of it.
Yeah, so I think we need to firm up some of our numbers on our side by Wednesday.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else anyone wants to do with the SAU inventory information this evening? Right.
Okay, so the compensated absences and that were sent out to you are accurate. It's, so what I will tell you is we can't remove the numbers prior to, but what I will share with the board is that Miss Canella and Miss Osborne will be paid out whatever they are due before the end. So there will be no liability from those two numbers. Those will be paid out. So the only liabilities will come from Mr. Stanley, myself, and Miss LaValle. Oh, I'm sorry, and Miss Folger. So you will be looking to remove approximately $8,000 out of the compensated absences, because they will be paid out by June 30th.
Any questions on that? All right.
Okay, so for Tyler training, I wanted to bring it to the joint board. The Nottingham board already had heard about it, but we hadn't had a chance to do anything with it at the last meeting. I did authorize Miss Bluen to participate. It was originally going to be multiple people participating in it potentially, so we were going to split the cost through the SAU. At the time, only Nottingham really needed it, but I thought that all parties would benefit from additional exposure to the training. And then what wound up happening is by people leaving their positions and resigning, it made it to where both districts would need it for the remainder of this year to be able to cut the payrolls at the end of the year. So I did authorize it to go out of the SAU lines. Typically, I won't overexpend a line in a budget unless it's an emergency, without at least letting the board know. But at this point, we found out on a Friday that this was, or a Thursday, that this was going to be available to us the following starting day, but we had to commit right away. So I said, go ahead and do it, because we both were going to need it. So at this point, that will be paid, it was a $1,200 training, and it will be paid for through the SAU fund balance.
Okay, and the training's on, specifically on SAU, on payroll.
The payroll and AP, that's all it was.
And future Nottingham employees and future SAU 44 employees are both.
Only future SAU, but it was, originally it was going to be a future Nottingham employee, but that person chose not to participate because they did not want to move forward with the position. So only only SAU 44 employee did it. But it was important to be able to do so that we could roll over the payroll for next year, because no one knew how to roll over the payroll. So payroll doesn't automatically get set up. You have to set up each employee in the correct payroll slot each year, and no one was left to do that. So Miss Balloon participated so that she could determine how to do that and make sure it took place, so that everyone would be in the right setup for the start of next school year.
Anything else for the superintendent report?
Not at this time.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Byrne? Okay. Any other items? Okay, I guess we can move on to our non-public.
I have nothing for non-public unless the board has additional questions regarding personnel and or the separation agreement. I tried to give you as much as I could without having to go into non-public, but if the board has any additional questions regarding those two matters, I would be happy to answer any of those.
Have you heard from Gordon at all on our side of it?
No, not on your side. So the last email that I have, I would feel more comfortable if we were non-public before I read the email, but I did get an email from Mr. Graham at 9:48 a.m. today, after I followed up the first thing this morning, and I have not heard anything since then.
Anything else for the good of the board?
Or should we go into non-public
Yeah,
then
so
to
we just-
discuss
so we can just-
integration?
yeah.
Okay.
This is theoretically our last meeting, so I think we have to have some plans.
Yep.
Close everything.
Okay, so it would be under L and potentially C. We'll go L and C.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, L and C.
Second.